Welcome, faithful listeners, to another Brew Ink Podcast.
Welcome to, what is this, episode 8?
It is.
Episode 8.
You would think I would be counting by now, but I'm not. Episode 8 of Brew Ink, and we are in another kind of special place.
Another dimension.
We're in another
I was going to
dimension.
call it a venue. But
Yeah. So we are in a friend's place, one of our listeners. He has a cool basement, and he's also a homebrew guy.
Homebrew.
And so he kind of offered for us to kind of come and record tonight. So
we said yes.
And we said yes. And he's got an awesome party basement, and we are here. And he's sitting over here refusing to be interviewed. But we
interviewed his beer.
we do have a ride home.
Yes. And so we just say thank you to Scott, and he's awesome, and he put aside a Iron Maiden Trooper beer for me, and maybe we can share that picture on the Facebook page.
Get a picture of that,
and we could get some pictures and share it on the Facebook page of all the awesome stuff that we were kind of drinking tonight. So let's kind of get started. So let's get started to talk a little bit about the homebrew. So Scott shared some of his homebrew, red ale, I believe. So
and we're going to judge now.
You're going to judge.
We're going to judge now.
Yes.
And the judgment is very good.
Yeah,
very good. That red ale was
great mouthfeel.
Great mouthfeel. Very light mouthfeel to me. Mm-hmm. Had some just wonderful flavors to it. It was a great starter beer. I'm big on hops and heavy hoppy beers. This was not a hoppy beer.
Yeah,
that makes it a great starter beer. It's a good
IBUs.
way to slide into drinking the stuff that'll really knock you flat. So the next one I had was a dogfish.
It's like an appetizer beer.
Yeah, it was like
really
an appetizer to
the
the dogfish head, which the dogfish head was huge.
Yeah. Dogfish head was good with the chilies in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some chilies and some cocoa and all kinds of stuff in there.
Do you remember the name?
Theo Broma. Scott chipped in there. Theo Broma is what it was called.
Theo Broma, yes.
Theo Broma.
I'm a big fan of Dogfish Head. Pretty much everything they do, I'm going to love it.
But don't go buying a 6 of it unless you really like the hops, guys.
Yeah.
It's a hoppy beer.
Yeah.
All of it.
Which, and it was funny because we were talking with Scott, just asking him questions about how he brewed it and, how long did he put it in the primary versus secondary. And we're asking, what kind of hops, and did you use a refractometer or did you use a hydrometer? And then we look over at Britt and Evie, and they're like, what are they talking about? And we realized, as much as we've said, yes, we're home brewers and we like beer, we haven't really delved into the home
We've
brew.
never really educated them.
Yeah. So, we want to take a little time and just talk about those kind of,
we should invite them over to brew mid-July, let's say, when it's nice and warm.
Yeah, and we'll do, what do you want to do, like an English? Or you want to do...
Oh, we could do a porter. We could do... it's a little early in the season to do the chocolate. That's such a cold weather beer for me, but...
I love anything.
We could do something easy like a
winter.
Heffenweizen. I mean, really...
Heffenweizen is good. So, just to give a general timeline to the process of homebrew, first you're going to want to find your recipe, whether you make it or you're copying someone else, and that's going to have a range of different grains to it.
And one of the coolest things about this is there are guides out there for grains and hops, and you can literally look at these things and go down the list and say,
and match.
I want a little of this and a little of this and a lot of that, and this is going to be my start. This is my base, and I'm going to add this flavor and this flavor, and I'm going to see what that tastes like. And you do that, and oh my goodness, it turned out right, it was horrible.
Yeah,
and you got to take this flavor out.
Yeah, and kilning the grain is what creates the different flavors. So the longer you kiln it, the darker it's going to be. So you have your regular base malt that's going to be a main portion of the brew itself. And then you're going to have your little bit darkers that maybe give you like a caramel or a biscuity type of flavor. And then you have your darkers that are going to be like your chocolate or your more toasty.
And I was telling these guys, the way I learned this stuff, I had a guy that had been doing this for a long time. He had blue ribbons hanging all the way around his office. Just
and when you say this guy's
name was...
mean Guy.
His name was Guy. It really was. and this guy took bags of grain out and put them on his desk and said, taste this, taste this, taste this. And that was my education in where to start. with this and tasting those grains and then just smelling the hops and
that's
let me tell you,
part of it.
hops is strong stuff. But
once you realize there really is a distinct difference in flavors within the grain type, you start going, oh, okay, I really can play around with this.
And what blew me away is like I make a chocolate beer. There's no chocolate in my chocolate beer. The grain is roasted so dark that it tastes like chocolate. And
See, I do use nibs in mine, and the nibs are usually made into a tincture. It's soaked in vodka. Overnight.
That's tempting.
Now I'm interested.
Yeah, and so that actually, what that does is the vodka withdraws the chocolate from the nibs itself, and it makes it more applicable to, when you're throwing it into your primary, and then in the secondary, or in the primary, you also throw in the nibs as well.
Right,
and then you remove those.
And then there's that all important thing is that we always like something in our beer other than water. We want some alcohol
flavor
in our beer.
Yeah.
And when we get alcohol in our beer, we can get more alcohol by adding more sugars.
Right.
Okay. But if we add too many convertible sugars, we're going to get a lot of alcohol, and it's going to make the beer not bitter, but I would call it. It's going to kill the flavor. Yeah. It's going to kill the flavors and
stringent almost.
So when you say here's a beer that's a 10% and this has got a lot of flavor to it, that's pretty rare.
Yeah,
that's really rare.
And I find that's kind of where the mouthfeel part of it comes from too. I know when I'm doing my higher ABV beers, I'm going to add things like oatmeal, and I'm going to make sure I use like a Maris Otter or something that's going to keep that rich
it's going to give you some fullness to it, right?
Yeah, and add some lactose to it to give you that good base and foundation to really build upon.
And people are sitting here going, what does that mean? Well, find yourself a friend that does home brewing that's pretty good at it.
Or just come hang out with these guys.
Oh, we don't have enough beer, man.
And you'll find things like when your beer's going flat on you, like or not flat, but like the head is just going down real fast. They have specialty grains that's for that. Your Carafoam and your Carapils that are going to help keep the head around longer and give you the nice the legs running down the side. When you see this, it's a good beer. When you have the bubbles going down the side of your glass.
You can't see this. He's got a tall glass and there's bubbles stuck to the inside. Where it's
and
dry.
I still have head on it towards the bottom, and it's I've been drinking on this for a good 20 minutes.
I don't have any left in mine. There's no head in mine at all.
We're going to take a break real quick.
Get Bill some beer.
Well, yeah, so, that's, and the process is you go from the mash, which is putting the grains into hot water for about an hour and a half. That becomes the wort. The wort then gets boiled for about an hour and a half, and during that boil process, you're throwing in hops throughout usually 3 intervals at the beginning, the middle, and then right at the end, which is the flame out. And then at that point, you're going to chill your wort as fast as you can using a wort chiller or whatever you have. And once it gets down to about 69 degrees, you're going to add your yeast and you're going to agitate. And that's your primary. You're going to put that into a carboy or whatever you're using and let that sit for about
let all those sugars,
4 days
and during that time, that yeast is going to take those sugars and it's going to gobble them up and turn them into alcohol.
Oh, yeah, the good stuff. And then from that point, it's kind of up to you. Do you put it in a secondary? You can add more hops. You can add more flavors. And that's
there's a lot of things you can do at that stage. I like to keep it pretty simple, but there's many things you can do there.
And then from the secondary, you can bottle, and from bottling, you can add a little more flavors there too.
Or you can put it in a keg. It's less trouble, and you can drink it faster without noticing how fast it's going away.
Yeah, kegging changed my life.
Yeah.
Just telling you, bottling takes about as long.
Back when I made 2 gallons of beer at a time, it took me a week to drink 2 gallons of beer, and now that I make 5 at a shot, it takes me 2 weeks.
It took me 2 1-gallon batches to realize this process is going to take me just as long, and I can get 5 to 10 gallons out of it if I just increase, my equipment capacity.
Hey, baby, I need to increase my equipment.
Exactly. My wife.
That's how that conversation
My wife bought me a 1
Honey, would
gallon.
you like me to increase my equipment size? Thank you.
There you go.
My wife bought me a 1-gallon brewing kit, thinking it was all packaged and done. And little did she know what she got
I didn't know it would
Bill,
be
we
so
can't
easy
take
to
you
get by
anywhere.
with this.
No.
Can't take him anywhere.
All right,
It's the homebrew process.
Scott is also a very experienced homebrewer. He's very humble about it. You entered the beer fest a couple years ago, didn't you?
I did.
Swanee
What did
Beer
you
Fest?
get?
Swanee?
Did you place?
There aren't any blue ribbons in my
There weren't any blue ribbons, but that's a pretty intense competition. I can only imagine the Swanee Beer Fest. So
Well, he makes good beer. I can attest to that.
He makes very good beer.
Yeah.
He makes like a black IPA that's one of my favorites. I actually don't like IPAs personally, but he makes a great IPA, black IPA that I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So I like to chew my beer. So, I'm one of those guys.
We can arrange that.
We could give you some of the spent grains or just the mash leftover mash.
So let's get into kind of some of the stuff we've been doing this week. I finally got back into some writing this week, and I did some outlining for my book Killer God, and it's just fun. And I've been trying to do a little bit more promotion with The Fire Reborn that just came out. But anyway, it's been a very busy season for me. A lot of the brewing that I have been doing this week was coffee for large conferences. So we have been working hard at that. But
that's why you're working with some kids.
Oh my God! On Friday it was amazing, and this has very little to do with writing, but it was just amazing. I was at LeaderCast in Gwinnett. And if you don't know what LeaderCast is, it's a conference about leadership, And, we were serving coffee there, and LeaderCast gave us some volunteers. And these were young inner city kids, like college-age guys, and they're part of this program called Year Up. And I was like, well, tell me about this program, and I'm a former educator, just kind of talking with them about their experience. And these guys were so impressive because it's a nonprofit organization, and it's a year-long program where like they get paid. Like these kids get paid to go to class and learn tech skills for a year and soft skills like leadership and team building and all this stuff. And it's intense. They show up. If they're late, their pay gets docked. And like they got to show up in like suits and ties. Like they are put through the ringer for a year.
I definitely did not go through that.
But if they'll be serious about this, think about this. At the end of a year, they've got skills of coding or IT or something, and they have like the personal skills to be able to like go and interview well and say no and deal with because we all know the people who like can code really well, but like they just can't get along with people because they sit but so these guys, I had
the
so
age
much,
group again.
It was a college age, college age kids, young people. Anyway, so that was great. And then as far as like what I've been watching, just kind of, I started Lost in Space, which you'll talk about. But I was telling them, before we kind of got started, that I watched Highlander this week, which won the Oscar for the best movie ever, right? And
thank you, Ricky Bobby.
And no, but I was watching it, and I loved this movie when I was a kid. Right? And it's one of those things where like you loved it when you were a kid and you watch it now and you're like, oh my God, this is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. And like Christopher Lambert was just like cheesy and creepy through half of the movie. And I'm like it's hard to believe that like a woman would want to go out with this guy. Like, you're just like, oh my God, he's just creepy. And he's supposed to be the hero. So I'm saying this would be a great, out of all these remakes they try to do, which just bug me because you can't do
Jumanji.
Better. You can't do better than the original. Jumanji, the new Jumanji was at least entertaining.
It is entertaining.
It was really entertaining.
But like, there's all these remakes that they do because the original movie was so good. And I'm like, you can't like take a movie that was a good idea, but they did it bad. Yeah. They did not do it well. Yeah. And so I think, and because Highlander, like it was made to be one movie, but then it became so popular that they kind of convoluted all these stories to make sequels, and they were so awful. Like they were even worse than the original. And so I think it would be a great movie to remake and then set up for sequels.
I think we need to give Will Ferrell his shot at Highlander.
Yes, Will Ferrell as Highlander. Oh, and by the way, I don't know what nationality Christopher Lambert actually is, but he's not Scottish. Like whatever accent that is,
that's clear.
But again, that's another thing that was awesome about the 80s. The 80s, you could, if you had an accent,
It didn't matter what accent it was.
It doesn't matter what accent it was. You could say it was from anywhere.
Right.
And moviegoers would go, oh, that makes sense.
You couldn't Google it.
Like, it was so funny in the 80s. Like, if you just had an accent, like, all of a sudden Arnold Schwarzenegger is Spanish or something. And you're like, well, no, that doesn't work.
Wait a minute.
So, anyway. So that
the best one, though, is Sean Connery. He plays in
Sean
one movie after the
Connery.
other, and it's always the same accent, and he's German, and he's Spanish.
yes, he's great.
It's great.
That's a great example.
And Russian.
And Russian.
And whatever.
With a Scott accent, he's a Russian.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not working. All right, so that was my week. Highlander, the greatest movie ever.
But you want to remake it?
I do. I really do. I'm sitting there going, I think you could remake it and not be creepy and actually set it up for sequels.
You really want this story to be the greatest story again, huh?
I do. I think it would work for a whole new generation. I think the Highlander needs to show up in the next Avengers movie. Ooh. Like there's some sort of time stone issue.
Really?
There you go.
No, I'm kidding. All right, so go, Bill. All right, how was your week?
Okay, my week. I didn't write. Well, I wrote Monday. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and Friday, took part in something that was completely different than what I thought it was going to be. I'm an amateur radio operator, so I went out with GEMA and FEMA and Homeland Security and this big thing called an MCV, which is a mobile command vehicle operation event. And there were, I guess, 40 mobile command vehicles from counties all over Georgia, plus National Guard, plus GEMA, FEMA, FBI, CIA didn't show up this year. If they did, we didn't see them.
and just to let you know, most of this interview will be redacted.
Yeah, we're gonna there was nothing really special about this except the FBI guys had some really cool cameras. Man, those guys could zoom in on a license plate at a quarter mile and read the date on it. You know, the little sticker. Those guys had some nice camera. Anyway. So nothing major. It was the kind of exercise where we just went out to practice emergency MCOM stuff and going up and setting up. And I guess the best way to put this was one of the police captains on site during the hot wash at the end said, I came here thinking I was going to bring my perfect equipment out and we were going to set it up and somebody was going to break it and we were going to have to fix it. Instead, I came up and found out my equipment was broken and this was a great opportunity to get everything in order. And that's pretty much how it went. It's just some crazy stuff, learned a lot. And I did it because I thought, this is going to make me a better writer. I'm going to meet different people in these different places and different venues. I'm going to understand them a little better. I've always thought firefighters were crazy, and most of the guys I met were crazy. Firefighters, they were all nuts.
They're like little kids.
They are. They love doing their job, and they love it. The worse it is, the more dangerous it is, the more likely they are to run right into the middle of it. They're insane. And I met some other guys that were not too cool, but we, most of the groups were really solid, and it was a good opportunity to just mix with all these other guys. And of course, the worst thing I heard the whole weekend is, "Hey, you guys, you're the experts now." And I'm like, oh no. It was kind of cool to know that, but it's like terrifying because I don't want to
be the expert.
You don't want to be the expert. No. Everybody calls you.
That's right.
And you're on the hot seat.
That's the last thing I want to be.
Yeah, I don't want to be the expert. Somebody told me an X was something that has been in spurts that drip under pressure, and that's just not my thing.
Someone's going to put me to work if I'm the expert.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
That's exactly what they meant.
I've got enough to do.
So I missed out on a whole lot of writing this week, but I got a whole lot of learning, and that's a good thing.
It is good.
It's exciting to me, but I'm excited to get back to work writing this week, and also because I've done a couple of these big things right in a row. Pretty much, I've got a ticket to say no to anything else for the rest of the year, other than a hurricane or an explosion somewhere.
It's hard to say no to a hurricane.
Yeah, it's hard to say no to a hurricane because those things.
Hurricanes don't listen.
They don't listen.
They're going to come anyway.
So yeah, fun stuff, but also something I do. And someday I'm going to write a book about this. In fact, I have an idea for a book, a story. I'm going to translate this into book stuff. A kid that's autistic, but he does well with CW. That's code. That's nice. Morse code. Yeah. Because he's autistic. And I don't know if you guys know that, but the Chinese military has been really upping their CW practice on the air for the last 2 years. They've been really pushing this stuff out like crazy. So
we should tag the Chinese in our Facebook post.
We can tag the Chinese in our Facebook and see if they shut us down. All right, see if they hack us. Wouldn't that be great to get hacked by the Chinese?
No, but I mean, I think that what a great opportunity for you and the kind of writing that you do.
Right, to pick up on that kind of stuff.
To pick up on that kind of stuff.
You know, so people keep asking me within that group of people. Of course, I'm the youngest guy there. I'm 54, and I am literally one of the babies in this group with these radio operators. And,
Nice.
you know, I get around, somebody says, "Who are you talking about?" I'm like, "Oh, you know that older." Oh, yeah, no, they're all older.
The guy your age.
Yeah. So I'm going to pass it over to Steven.
Steven.
Me. Here I am.
Hi.
I don't know
No,
what
I'm just
you
kidding.
What'd you do this week?
So, I've done a little bit of writing, and I did a little bit of watching. Actually, I did a lot more watching than writing, I think. I finished off Lost in Space, which I thought it ended well. They're really good. They're right in my vein of like, okay, here's this problem. Here's the solution.
Yeah.
This is how we're going to get to it. And just as we get this solution, here's this other problem.
Yeah.
And on top of this problem, we're going to have this problem.
Yeah.
And now we're going to have this interpersonal problem as well. And we're going to wrap all these up. And as we wrap that up, now we're out of fuel. And then now we got to get into space. And now we're in space. And now our ship is exploding. And now after this ship is exploded,
Now we're lost in space.
Yes. And so they do a really good job. And you know, all this action is actually melded really well together with good character development.
Yeah.
You hate the person that you're supposed to hate, and you're rooting for the people that are trying to work it out with their other family members and stuff like that, and you're feeling for the characters that are like that, the character that doesn't really feel like they belong and doesn't
Now,
really know.
is Joey from Friends still the pilot?
No, Chandler's in this one.
Chandler's in this
Chandler.
Seriously?
No, but I think they did. And I don't remember, like, I didn't watch all of the old Lost in Space. I saw a couple episodes.
Everyone.
So I don't,
Black and white, color.
I don't know how much of the storyline, they're staying true to, but I figure, whatever they're doing, it seems new and it seems fresh.
No, it's very new and fresh, and I agree. It's totally in your wheelhouse of the kind of writing that you do.
Yeah.
And I've only watched the first episode, but the fact that I didn't know she was in it, but Parker Posey as Dr. Smith was genius. I was like, she's one of my favorite actresses, and they don't put her in enough stuff to me.
Right.
I'm like, if I were making a movie,
She does a great
it would
job.
be John Cusack and his sister Joan Cusack, and Parker Posey would be in it.
Yeah.
I mean, there would be certain people I'd be like, I got to find a way to put these people in this movie.
Yeah.
But Parker Posey is an amazingly
great
talented.
job.
She's so talented.
Yeah,
man.
as a Dr. Smith, and yeah, you don't like her.
No, but she's very talented. So.
Yeah.
She's from New York. So.
Well, yeah.
So
She does it her way, right?
so that was good. Yeah,
that was good. And Evie, we're trying to keep Evie awake because she's got to read later. It's her turn to read. So, Evie, as we kind of round out the group here, what have you been doing this week?
Oh boy, I gotta think about that for a minute. I've been socializing more than anything. I've got one party after the other. But I'm kind of, I know, right? With my small group.
With your small group, those church party animals.
Those church party animals, exactly.
That's kind, man.
We had a blast. Anyway, but I've actually been non-stop writing on the 8th chapter of Boneyard. And it takes a lot. Like, I just kept going over it and over it, and I kept finding spots where I was like, I don't like this. And I think I drove my husband insane. I was like, what do you think of this? He's like, I don't know what you changed. Like,
don't you know that I switched this sentence with that sentence?
Exactly.
There's a comma in a different spot, okay?
Duh, didn't you hear the pause?
And then I had my husband read it back to me, and he was using funny voices, and it was awesome. He was doing a great job, and in his head, the doc is a Russian.
Pause, bring your husband in, he's reading from now on.
That's right.
Now,
He'd do great.
Did I settle an argument when you guys called me?
Yes, you did settle an argument.
Who
we had to
won?
call. I did, of course. I had to call Bill about radios. So, spoilers. But yes, we had a blast. It was like a couple date almost.
Nice.
So that's kind of what took your focus this week.
It was
for
the
writing.
writing. Oh my goodness,
Yeah,
the
and this
writing
story.
took so much time. I had a blast though. And then I was watching this kid movie, and it's not very popular, but it's called Leap. And
Okay. Yeah.
I was having a blast, and I was saying this earlier that they were writing, and there's this part where I'm like, oh my goodness, he's going to die. And then he doesn't. And I'm like, excuse me, he needs to die. Because I'm a better writer than you. But it was still a good movie, and it really did help kind of spark some thoughts. I'm really getting into movies for the first time in my life, because I can't usually sit still through them. And so Lee is having a blast. His way of getting downtime and doing date nights is movies, and I'm like, nope. Even before he got married, I warned him, and so now he's like, yes. And I'll say like, hey, we should watch The Darkest Hour or one of the Avengers, and he's sitting there going, wait, really? But yeah, anyway, the biggest thing is I've been working on this nonstop for 4 days straight. I'll be honest, the options turned on me at the end. I did not think that was going to be the option picked. Mm-hmm. So in my head, I had already started writing. And I was like, what happened?
It's not what I voted for.
I voted for the alien. I
voted for the alien.
Yeah.
Everyone in my family voted for the alien. I was like, seriously, y'all?
Yeah.
Like, do I look like an alien?
So you know
writer?
what that means? We all voted aliens, people we know, but that means all our listeners.
All
voted for this, and that's great. I love it. I saw people on Facebook that were voting that I hadn't seen voting before, and I love it. And that's what we're here for. That's what the challenge is for us as well. Because as a writer, you will get in your mind, okay, this is where it's going to go.
Yeah, and
that's what this is for.
It forces you
curveball.
And I was talking with a friend of mine today, and he was telling me like, this is why I didn't vote for the alien. This is why I voted for the one that won, and he voted for that one, and I'm like, oh, okay, like, and so, but I think what you're saying is something that I didn't expect. I mean, because I'm an idea guy, and I can plan, but like, I think what we've kind of found out about it is that it takes more than just sitting down and writing 1,500 words. Like, I was thinking, well, we'll have a week or a few days or a week to kind of write something, and that'll be enough time. And I think it is enough time, but I think...
But it's almost fun because you only have that short amount of time.
Yeah.
You almost have to go with your gut. You're not allowed to edit 100 times like, oh, well, maybe. You have to decide where you're going to go. Within the second draft, you need to like have it defined. Here we go.
It gets cut.
Absolutely. For me, it's absolutely discovery writing stuff.
Yes.
And the first draft is so close to being the final draft for me.
Which, by the way, for our listeners, I do think what was voted on was probably the hardest thing to have to transition.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Because she had to set up a motive and a reason, and then the action of it all.
Well, no, wait a minute. She didn't have to set up the motive, because that's what's left to the next writer, I think. After you hear this.
But I had to hint and foreshadow a little bit of like...
And I think the next writer's going to get to decide what his motive was.
Right.
That could be really interesting.
Right,
Very interesting.
You'll see in the story, but
And the cool part about the votes suddenly turning like that is that it did show that your feedback matters, because what we got feedback-wise was that the options aren't varying enough to bother voting. This time, you saw some strong votes coming in because we had 3 very different options, and people seem to really like that. So I'm excited that we got feedback that was helpful to us and that we were able to turn around. So a good reminder... Keep giving us feedback. You guys can leave comments on the Facebook.
And some of you have been commenting on Instagram, and Twitter is also a viable option for leaving your remarks.
And of course, if you're not absolutely sure, get your friends to read it too and give their feedback.
And then they tell 2 friends.
And that was a wink there to the audience.
And without further ado,
let's do it.
Here comes Chapter 8 of Boneyard.
Yeah, there it is.
All right. Boneyard, Episode 8. Doc knocked on the door. His body was already halfway in the room. He scrunched up his face. "Excuse me," he said, entering the rest of the way and leaving the door open behind him. I glared past the doc at a small group of uniformed men that had congregated in the hall. They stared curiously at us, like visitors at a zoo, as they murmured amongst themselves. 2 soldiers entered the room and handed the doc a medical bag. "Thank you, gentlemen." They took their place at attention on either side of Doc and waited for further orders. I shifted a few steps back nervously. The doc set his bag on the desk and opened it. We're Gonna need to run some tests. He pulled from his bag 3 large syringes and laid them next to him on the desk. The hell you are, cried Troy, stepping in front of Walt and me, his hand tightening into a white-knuckled fist. I'm afraid you don't have a choice in the matter, he gestured to the soldiers, who moved toward us at his request. Troy swung a left hook to one soldier's jaw. He crumbled to the floor. His comrade, taken aback by the power behind the punch, momentarily retreated. 4 of the uniformed men outside the door stormed the room to help. The soldier repositioned. He leaped forward and tackled Troy, heaving him up over his shoulder. 2 of the uniformed men grabbed onto Troy's arms, pinning them to the soldier's back. I screamed as Doc took advantage of Troy's unfavorable position and shot one of the syringes into his rear. Troy's body went limp. The soldier tossed him off his shoulder into a heap on the floor and then turned to Walt and me. 1 down, 2 to go, the soldier growled. His deep, raspy voice made me shudder. Walt grabbed up the baton the guard had left behind and leaped onto the desk. Swinging wildly down at the men who tried to grab him, he screamed at the doc, "What do you want with us?" "I'm trying to help you," he said with such a sincere tone it caught me off guard. His eyes darted to me, unblinking, like he was trying to tell me something. His face scrunched up again. I tore my gaze away from Doc and focused my attention on 2 men closing in on me. The tag on the uniforms read Lieutenant Burns and O'Brien. My head swarmed with thoughts of what to do. How did we get into this mess? How are we going to get out? Who was this doctor? They advanced slowly, their hands stretched out before them. I withdrew back toward the jail cell. My foot caught on the edge of the desk chair and rolled out from under me. Landing with a thud and a clang, my head hit the jail bars behind me. I clutched my head. It throbbed. My vision blurred. I tried to focus my eyes, but I could only make out Walt's 4 limbs flailing in the hands of 3 green uniformed figures, the white shirt and black tie of Doc drawing closer and closer to Walt. Walt's body ceased kicking. I stared hard in shock at the lifeless blob. Lieutenant Burns and O'Brien grabbed me around my arms and heaved me up between them. My head swam. The fluorescent lights cast a halo around Doc's looming form. I'm sorry it had to be this way. I felt the sharp needle jab into my arm and the cold liquid pulsing through my veins as my legs gave way and the room went black. I awoke on a cold metal surface that was sure to be one of the autopsy tables. My body felt numb. With much application, I managed to wiggle a few fingers. A large hand clasped on top of them and pinned them down against the icy metal. I snapped my eyes open and found Doc's wide eyes staring at me. He darted them from me, up towards 2 uniformed men arguing on my right, then back to me. His face scrunched up and released. He shook his head subtly, his eyes gaping into mine. No mistake this time. He was definitely trying to communicate something. Was he really trying to help? Was there any other choice but to trust him? Doc pulled a zipper over my head. I lay silently in a black bag. A body bag. I cringed at the thought. If the paperwork is in order, then I really must get going. My people are, waiting. Doc squeaked with a note of urgency. What people? Colonel, who is this doctor that he is above the military? That's enough, Major. Yes, Doctor, your paperwork checks out. You are free to go. With the bodies? Yes, with the bodies. I'll send in some help. The Colonel's feet shuffled to the door, the Major at his heels sniffing in disagreement. But Colonel, we need a chance to figure out who and what these kids are. We need to know what we are dealing with here. The heavy metal door slammed shut behind the Major. The Doc unzipped the zipper over my head and revealed his twitching face. I opened my mouth to speak, but Doc swiftly slapped his hand over my mouth and pressed his finger to his lips. They think I'm in a room with 3 dead bodies, he whispered. I will explain once we are clear of this place. For now, you're just gonna have to trust me. Shut up and play dead. I'll get us out of here alive if you just trust me. His face scrunched up yet again. Breaking my attention from Doc, I looked over his shoulder and gasped. What? I pointed to a black body bag that shifted on the metal table behind him. Oh, he yelped, grabbing a nearby bedpan and smashing it with a loud crash over the top of the bag. It ceased moving. Sedatives just aren't holding on you kids. Quick. I settled back down into the bag as Doc zipped it up over me. I hope that was Troy's head he just smashed. Troy deserved it after all the trouble he had caused. The door creaked open. What was that? The Major snapped. Just clumsy, said Doc innocently, as the table I was on jolted and rolled with a thud over the threshold. I could hear the other 2 tables clack-clack-clacking close behind. The pinholes along the zipper flickered as we rolled under the fluorescent lights of the hallway. Another thud, and the barks of drill sergeants Shrill whistles and a muffled intercom announced our exiting the building. Strong hands grabbed either side of my bag. I braced myself, ready for the hard thud into the truck. I did hit hard. I rolled a few feet down the truck bed, finally settling on my side. "Gentle!" screeched the squeaky voice of Doc as another bag thudded into the truck. The last body bag crashed with a loud boom down on top of my foot. I bit my lip to keep silent. A low groan resounded next to my head. My heart skipped a beat. Walt moaned again. "Shh," I whispered. But what use would that be? Walt was waking up in a body bag. That was sure to set off anyone. The truck engine roared to life and the back end slammed shut. We just might make it out of here alive. The wheels thundered over the rough terrain and then came to a grinding halt. "Paperwork, please." "Everything looks in order, Mr. I could hear the guard rifling through the papers. "Ah, Dr. Cornelius, you're free to go." Yes, thank you." I felt Walt squirm next to me. "Ah, where am I?" "Walt," I whispered harshly. "I can't see." "Shh, shut up, Walt." "Deb?" "What was that?" the guard demanded. Feet shuffled to the back of the truck. My stomach lurched into my throat. "Hey, one of these bags is moving." I heard Walt unzip the bag. "Where am I? Hey, what is this?" "Hold on, kids," Doc howled as the truck jarred into gear. "Stop," barked the guard. I unzipped my bag in time to see the guard stumble into the dirt as the truck pulled away from his grip with great speed. Dirt kicked up from the truck's spinning wheels, leaving a cloud of dust in our wake. The sirens blew in the distance, and within moments, 5 green army trucks were in pursuit. I crawled up the rumbling truck bed and leaned into the cab, where Doc was speaking into a large walkie-talkie. "Papa Bear to Mama Bear," he said into the mic. "We screwed the pooch." A moment later, a staticky voice replied, "Mama Bear to Papa Bear, cavalry's on the way." Who is this Doc, and who was Mama Bear?
We're going to snap it in.
Oh, yeah.
Good job, Evie.
Evie.
Now, as I've said before, Evie is one of the least experienced writers among us, and yet she keeps showing us all up. That's what I'm saying. I'm just going to say that out loud so everyone knows that she worked really hard on this, and she came up with, I think, a great episode. And so, kudos to you, Evie. And so now let's get into some choices. What are the first 2 choices you're going to give us?
All right, the first 2 choices I'm giving you are: Deb starts suffering withdrawal symptoms.
Withdrawal.
I like that one. That was one of my choices early on, is withdrawal, because it's like a drug. These people get addicted to this stuff.
They get that high.
They get that high, and they've got all this strength and all this power. And at some point, they've got to start coming down, and it's going to do more than just make them weaker. It's going to make them hurt.
Impede.
It's going to impede them. Yeah.
Yep. Then the
option 2.
Option 2 is Troy wakes up and uses his stone.
He's still got one of the
He's got one more in his pocket.
He's got
one
more.
Okay. They said it was a little one, but yes. All right, option 3.
We really liked the Doc was an alien. We could do something where it's revealed why he's Papa Bear and who
who's Mama Bear?
Like who's Mama Bear? Why is he Papa Bear? So we could go back to him being an alien. We could go back to that.
Yeah, we should develop that. Like, who's Mama Bear? She's coming out of nowhere. She's the cavalry.
Well, maybe Mama Bear's not actually a she. Maybe Mama Bear's just a code name. Because that's the whole point.
That's the whole point,
so
right?
it could be anything,
But Mama Bear being a code name needs to come from something bigger, a bigger entity.
So what's Doc up to? The next writer gets to decide this, doesn't he?
Right. That's
because we really need to know, because we don't know. I mean, Doc, so far, we think Doc's a good guy because he's getting the kids out of there.
But we still don't know.
But that isn't the way we write, is it?
No.
Mm-hmm. Wink, wink around the table, guys.
Yeah.
All right. So Mama Bear, Papa Bear. Maybe who's Mama Bear? That's the question, really.
Right. And if Mama Bear is a code name for a bigger entity and it's Mama Bear, we could always go with Mama Ship.
Oh,
mothership.
Like a
mothership.
Like maybe Mama Bear shows up.
Mama Bear shows up.
All right, wait a minute. We're talking about the 60s here. The bear was Russia. Come on.
True.
Maybe that's it.
Mother Russia.
Maybe we should just say
Mama Bear, Mother Russia?
KGB agent.
We could just
could
say Mama Bear shows up. Whoever
Mama Bear, because she does say the cavalry's on the way.
Cavalry's on the way. So
She does
Mama
say
Bear
the
is definitely
cavalry's
a
on the
bigger.
Oh yeah, I like that. Like
So
Mama Bear shows
up, and then we get to reveal maybe who Mama Bear
whatever
is.
way,
Yeah.
shape or form.
What do you think?
I like it.
Mama Bear shows up.
Mama Bear shows up.
shows
That's
up.
it.
All right, so your 3 options are
So 3 options are Deb starts suffering withdrawal symptoms. Option 2 is Troy uses his stone after waking up.
Right.
And option 3 is Mama Bear shows up.
Yeah. So just so our listeners can kind of see what we're doing here, like the reason why these first 2 options are really good because they're already being chased, and so sometimes what we say as writers is you put your hero, you put your protagonist in a tree, and then you start throwing rocks at him or her.
Right.
Like, and so they're in the tree, they're getting chased, they're in body bags, they're like, now this is making the situation worse.
Right.
So now we are doing the
yes,
no, and
yeah.
Not only are they not getting free yet, now we're adding her withdrawal symptoms, or we're adding Troy being a knucklehead somehow again.
Yeah.
Because, I mean,
Or-
that's just
That's
Troy,
who he
right?
is.
We love you, Troy.
Or
love Troy.
For all you
welcoming,
Troys out there listening.
or welcoming the unknown. Mama Bear.
Or we throw kind of the outside the box out of left field where Mama Bear shows up somehow.
Exactly.
Because she does say the cavalry's on the way.
Yep.
And then the next writer, me, can then blow everybody up. Because that's the most creative way to do this.
If Britt becomes mysteriously ill over the next month and you don't hear him on our podcast,
You'll know why.
you'll know he blew somebody up.
He blowed up real good. Anybody ever see
blowed
that?
up real good.
SCTV?
Well, you mentioned that in one of our podcasts.
SCTV.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are 3 great options. I like those options actually.
I like
Actually, pretty good, yeah.
And again, this is something where we'll try to do a better job. When you pick one option, we're just going to stick with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes when we write, we do all of them somehow. But
one time someone got a tie.
I got a tie. Yeah,
got a tie.
I had to write 2.
That's true. And so yeah, and I think that's it. I think that's a good kind of close of our episode.
Yeah.
A couple of us, Steven and I, just to kind of give everybody a heads up. I don't know if we can find any time this week, but we still need to do some sort of Avengers review.
Yes.
And if you guys want to see the movie in the meantime, and
You
we
can
can
join
all,
in
Hey,
on
we're
that.
scheduled to see it in the next week or so. If you spoil it for us.
Or no, there will be no spoilers. We will just record it, and then we will put it out there,
with warning,
Spoilers.
with major spoiler warnings.
Yes.
Because when Underdog shows up, that's the most craziest part to me.
Yeah,
I
Underdog.
agree. I did not know Underdog was.
I mean, it's the crossover event of like history. We got Underdog and Dino Mutt. They kind of come in,
and Scrappy Doo.
yeah. So that's it. Well, we just have.
Remember, go leave some comments on our Facebook
Yes.
or our Twitter. We've got a Twitter, Brew and Ink. We've got a
Website,
Instagram. And
Website.
The website has
a comment.
all of our links.
And
a
vote.
comment section.
And
vote
vote.
well. Pick one of these things. Have fun with it.
Yeah.
Every week
Drive
it
us
says
crazy.
vote well,
We'll-
that's
We'll write.
clear.
We'll write whatever you vote.
Right, whatever you vote whatever you want. And a big thanks to Scott for
Yay.
his hospitality. Big
Snap it out with
snaps,
Scott.
and we're raising our glass to inspiration.
Yeah.
So,
They sound like empty
so
glasses.
God bless to everybody. It has been a great night. We'll put some pictures up on the Facebook page.
It's a good thing.
And kind of get everybody ready for Wednesday
and
when we.
those of you that are inspired, go write.
Yeah.
Try and do it every day. If you can't, at least get out there and write 2 times a week.
And if you're sick enough, we'll let you join the group.
Well, and let's just say we hopefully we'll be back here at another time, sometime in the future to record. But if any of you have houses with large amounts of beer,
We will show up.
we will show up and record our
consume.
podcast, please just invite us over. That's all I'm saying. So anyway, God bless everybody, and have a good one. Thank you.
Good night.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast. And by that, I mean us. Welcome back, us.
Welcome back, us.
Welcome back. So, all right, he's had too much beer.
Has it been
as they murmured as they right at a small group of uniformed men that had dang it, the pinholes along the zipper flickered as we rolled under the fluorescent. The pinholes along the zipper flickered as we rolled under the fluorescent right. Oh my god!
You got her all tripped up.
This is not my doing. She was already done.
Way too much caffeine. I've had 3 of those Cokes. All right, here we go.